Yo, what is up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Lake Show Digest. Coming at you on a Tuesday afternoon. The Lakers just wrapped up their regular season against the New Orleans Pelicans with a 110-98 win. They ended the year on a 5-game winning streak. We got LeBron and Schroeder back in the lineup for the last 2 games, and we secured the 7th seed in the West. We were in contention for that 6 at the very end, but it wasn't in our hands completely. It was also in the hands of guys like Portland. And because of people tanking, allegedly, like Denver and the Clippers too, which is really fun to see, we ended up with that 7th seed. So that means we're headed in the play-in, and we have a really great game coming up against the Warriors. I think it's going to be pretty good. Steph's on fire. The Warriors are playing pretty well as a unit, and we are starting to, get our rhythm back, and we got all our guys back. So today we got Phil to talk with us. We're going to talk about how the Lakers have looked, at the end of the season. We'll reflect on this up and down regular season that we had, and then we'll look ahead at the matchup. How you doing today, my man?
Hey, what's going on? I'm doing great.
That's good, man. I'm looking forward to this game we got tomorrow against the Warriors at Staples Center. But let's start off with how we looked, in that Pelicans game and just kind of end the year. What were your thoughts on how we ended the year?
I was pretty pleased with the 5-game win streak to end the year. I think that the guys are starting to get comfortable with each other. In particular, Andre Drummond really started to find his niche on the court with Anthony Davis and LeBron James in the last couple of games.
Yes.
He found ways to be effective and do his points rebounds thing without the turnovers or the ugly post ups or any of the stuff that we've seen him do where he's not very effective. So the fact that just monster of a player and this elite athlete is starting to find his niche as a role player is something that should brighten some other teams.
He's a lot more free to just be a beast, man. And with less responsibility, he doesn't have to worry as much about creating his own shot or, dealing with the double teams. Because, dude, what I've loved about Drummond is how open he's looked in some of these. In the last couple games, some of my favorite plays have been when our forwards just pass the ball between each other, LeBron to Davis to Drummond. That's when I'm like, ooh, you can't stop us. Oh, my God, I love that. Like that size.
And shout out to Pete Zayas, like our film room, for going over this earlier today. But I saw this on Twitter. Like, you've seen him in the post in some of these earlier games getting double and triple teamed. When he's playing in the dunker spot next to LeBron James and Anthony Davis, there's barely one guy on him. And it's usually someone with a mismatch because the guy that's guarding him is the first person over to the defensive rotation on Davis or James in the post.
Mm-hmm.
So he's got this physical advantage, which means you need to bring 2 guys to keep him off of the offensive boards. And at that point, your defense is just warped beyond recognition.
Which is why guys didn't want us to get Drummond in the first place. We didn't have LeBron and AD on the court when we got Drummond, and so it looked a little iffy. But this is why people were mad, because when you have the defense having to pay attention to a lot of LeBron James and a lot of AD, Drummond is the most overqualified guy to sit in the dunker spot. Now, if he was a more reliable finisher, then it would be, super deadly. But if he's going to get these wide open dunks and stuff, I feel really good about our chances in the interior. In terms of his finishing, I'd say it's been pretty good in the last couple of days compared to where it was in some of these really bad losses. He's still making the occasional, like he at least makes one bad miss per game.
I think if you were to graph like the quality of his finishing and the percentage of his shot attempts that are dunks, it's pretty much a straight line. Anytime he has to shoot the ball instead of just shove it in the hoop, you're kind of losing a little bit.
Even when he does try to shove it in the hoop, it's not guaranteed to go. as we've seen with a couple really bad misses, dude. But I do like even some of those hook shots are starting to go in, and it's just really great to see those wide open dunks. Yeah, dude, Drummond's been a real bright spot for me this last stretch of the year. What another bright spot I thought has Anthony Davis's health, man. He's been playing a lot of minutes, and he had to leave early in that Pelicans game. I don't think he came in after he something hit his ankle or something like that. I don't know if it was the Achilles part that was hurt, but Anthony Davis has been playing a lot of minutes, and he got a good stat line against the Pelicans. I don't have it right now, but I think it was in the high 20s or like 30s range. So that's been pretty encouraging too. Anthony Davis being able to stay on the floor, and when he runs into some physical troubles, he'll come back on. There's been a couple moments like that. What have been your thoughts on that and some other bright spots to end the year?
I like Davis coming back a lot. When he's at his best, it's like he's almost like a gazelle, like he's so lanky and graceful that it doesn't really look like he's putting in that kind of effort, but he's still getting these significant advantages, and that's how he's looked lately. He didn't look that way right away. It took him a few games to get it back,
Mm-hmm.
but he looks, ready on both ends of the floor now, and that is a delightful development for Laker fans.
Yeah, the how good AD's looked in these final like on this final 5 game win streak has just improved my confidence a ton in this team because it was at a seasonal low in that Raptors loss. LeBron didn't look right. We had just lost to the Kings with LeBron and AD back. AD wasn't looking right, and that's when I started to really think like, are we going to be healthy enough to get this run going? That is still a question, but I'm just really glad AD's starting to look like himself. We got some monster games out of him. The shot isn't as lethal as it was, in the bubble. Who knows if it will get back to that level? But that's I guess the other thing that I want to see him lock down because he'll have some good shooting games. And the other one, I think he went like 5 for 19 in this Pelicans one, but the defense has still been there. I think he's getting his timing back. He's I wouldn't say he's as deadly as he was last year, but he's on the right track. What have you thought of him defensively?
Defensively, I think he's been every bit as deadly as he was last year in the last few games. It's like you said, it's been the offensive stuff where it's working on his timing and dealing with the bumps that he gets and sensing where the double teams are coming from. All that's just kind of a getting used to it thing. But I think on defense, he has just been everywhere again, protecting the glass, guarding people he has no business guarding on the perimeter without giving up advantages. It's the stuff that we're used to. It's what makes him potentially the best defender in the world every time he steps on the court.
I know, and maybe me thinking he hasn't been as deadly could be due to the fact that maybe there's some more high mistake guys out there like THT, Ben McLemore. I'd say we were a little more disciplined defensively last year. Also, Andre Drummond isn't always perfect in terms of defensive IQ, but that could be another reason for maybe we're giving out some extra points in the paint that we wouldn't have last year. I still feel pretty good about our defense, and let us bring up, it's already been said, but we finished with the #1 defensive rating in the league, and we were missing our defensive captain all year, and we were missing LeBron.
Just about to say that because as crazy as this year has been and as inconsistent as it seemed, like NBA scoring has been bonkers this year, and they have a lower defensive rating than they did last year, both in abstract terms, and they're the best by rating defense in the NBA.
I didn't know we
So
had lower
even
rating
with that, yeah. So like the fact that they have been able to run with that, in spite of the injuries, and still, and look, they're not even going to get. Excuse me, they're not even going to get a fucking guy on the all defensive team.
No.
Which is, it's so ridiculous.
And neither will the Knicks, and they've had one of the best defenses ever, man. There's got to be a different way for us to evaluate that award because, yeah, if you want to expand on that, go ahead. I have some thoughts on it too.
Well, and there are guys who, like Alex Caruso, like Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, like at times Marc Gasol this year, who has been way more effective defensively at his age than I expected, even though he's known as a defensive stud. That you cannot, and part of the thing is that giving individual awards for defense is always particularly fraught because you cannot have a good defense without buy-in from everybody. Like if you're covering people up, you're exposed in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so hard to assign individual credit, but it seems absurd that these two units who have so many powerhouse individual defenders, like no one's talking about outside of New York, Nerlens Noel, who has had a magnificent defensive season. He has been all over the place. He's been the best version of himself since he's been in the league. And it just seems kind of weird that because these guys don't have the reputation, in air quotes, that they don't really get this kind of consideration in spite of the results.
It's really reputation based, man. Yeah, and I mean, a guy like Rudy Gobert has an army of guy pulling up an army of people pulling up advanced stats to always, get his claim going. And he is a great defender, but it'd be kind of cool if there was just like a best defensive unit team. I don't know if it would be like a lineup or if it would just be a team, because it seems like just because of what you said, how much of defense has to do with buying in from the entire unit. It'd be cool if there was some acknowledgement like that, but that's just a little side conversation we could have.
Yeah, I don't know if we have time to go all the way down that rabbit hole. I could talk your ear off.
Yeah. But we were an amazing defensive squad this year, man. Given the fact that I thought we'd be a weaker defensive squad with losing Dwight and JaVale, but shit, we held it down. And I didn't know that we actually were better defensively in terms of defensive rating than last year, based on what you said.
Yeah, it's marvelous what they've been able to do. And part of it is, part of it has to be Frank Vogel, because it's not a coincidence that good defenses appear to follow him around. Like, this man made Roy Hibbert the DPOY.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sure a lot of that is his scheme, but it's also like the best thing about great teams is you don't know who to give the credit to.
Yeah.
Because we don't know, who's generating this buy-in. And the answer is it's a little bit of everyone. Like, there's trust in the ownership, there's trust in the management, there's trust in the coaching, there's trust in the stars, there's trust in the role players. Everyone knows where they are supposed to be, and everyone trusts everyone else. So that goes a long way towards generating the kind of effort that you have to play great defense in the grind of what was this year a 72 game season. And everybody buys in. It doesn't matter. Like, Caruso has a foot injury and a back injury, and he's still diving for meaningless loose balls in the fourth quarter, because that's just what he does. And that kind of energy is infectious, and it really does take everybody.
Yeah, really does take everybody, man. And when a guy like Caruso can't play, a guy like Wesley Matthews comes in and steps up and has the ability to defend guys that are taller than him just because he's, a little stockier, steps into that Danny Green role that we had last year.
Yeah, I remember when he swiped Kelly Olynyk at the end of that Heat Miami game to essentially secure the win. Like, Olynyk's going in on the mismatch, and he just pokes the ball right out, gets the steal that seals the game.
Mm-hmm.
And there's film of him smiling at the bench after he gets that steal and the foul is called, and he's laughing and yelling to LeBron and Anthony Davis on the bench, "I don't know what he's doing. Like, I don't know what he thinks he's doing. He's coming after me. Are you serious? Do you know who I am?" And that kind of confidence from guys.
I love that attitude from our guys.
Yeah, from guy, and everyone on the team has that attitude from top to bottom. It doesn't matter how little their role is. Like, their attitude is, "You're going to step up to me? Okay." Like, and that it creates a toughness that it's hard to score on guys when they believe in themselves that much.
Yeah. Confidence like that goes a long way for sure, man. Transitioning to the Warriors matchup, I'm pretty confident in how we match up with them, man. So we have the 7 versus 8 play-in game against them, and it's going to be at Staples Center. I think we go away with this victory. I think we match up really well with them, but we have to take into account things like Steph going off, who's been playing really well. Love to get your thoughts on that matchup. We got that on Wednesday at Staples Center.
I will be surprised if the Lakers do not win that game. I will be equally surprised if Steph doesn't drop a 40-piece. Because I just think that's how this is going. I think that the Lakers are a little bit too talented for this Warriors roster. If they had the extra spacing and defense from Clay, then maybe that's something in a one-game scenario that I'm a little bit more worried about.
Mm-hmm.
But with everybody on the roster playing, with the leadership of LeBron and the fact that everyone understands what the stakes are here, including money for a lot of people, Dennis. So I think that the effort's going to be there and they're going to take care of business, but I do not think that Steph is going to go quietly into the night.
I don't think so either. I'm expecting something really entertaining. It's so cool that we get LeBron and Steph again, all these years later, but now it's in a playing game in the Western Conference, and it's in a way different setting, but Steph has the ability. I was thinking he's got to be the toughest point guard to guard, just the toughest guard in the league because of just his off-ball actions and his ability to create space, and also his ability to just get his shot up with the littlest window of space and to be the most likely guy to make it. So it's going to be the biggest test of our perimeter defense. I'm glad that we're being tested, honestly. I was kind of hoping that the week of rest would have been great for the 6 seed, but our guys still need reps. I think we didn't get that continuity. We only got 2 games really where we got LeBron, Davis, Schroeder, and most of the role players back. I'm happy that they're going to get these reps in a meaningful game. I'm looking forward to see how Frank treats his lineups. I don't expect him to be experimenting anymore. This is something that actually has some stakes. So that's going to be something I'm looking forward to in this game with the Warriors. Who else do you think would have the chance to go off against us? I was thinking Andrew Wiggins, dude. I just got this weird feeling that there's going to be some guy who's, not a star for them, but just has a crazy game against us. So who else do you think?
I will say this, people have sort of Kwame Browned Andrew Wiggins. I'm going to make that reference since it's so much more relevant in the last 24 hours.
Absolutely.
They've sort of they've turned him into this bust punchline that has he played the hype of the time was, the next LeBron James and all that. Has he lived up to that expectation? No. But he's still in the league and he's having pretty much a career year with the Warriors. On both ends. He's still inconsistent in a lot of ways. And he's still got the flaws that he's always had, but he's been able to minimize them more than he ever has with that system. And it's apparent that he's trying harder than he ever did with Minnesota. So I think it would be silly to count Wiggins out because he's Wiggins. He's still a very good basketball player who's got a lot of athletic gifts and is capable of burning you if you don't take him seriously.
I know he's still a 6'7" guy with a lot to prove. So I'm not really in favor of Kwame Brownifying, someone who had a kind of troubled past like that. Recently, he had a pretty good game. I think it was against. I'm on Basketball Reference right now. Yeah, he had 38 against Phoenix, and I think that was a game where Steph went pretty wild too. 21 against Memphis. He's scoring in the 15 to 20 range, but he could also go for high 20s any night. I think he's definitely a guy we got to respect in this matchup. If it's anything that would take us down, and I think we really have the advantage because every time we play the Warriors, dude, our bigs just demolish them. Even going back to Anthony Davis's first games in the preseason against them, we just saw a lot of LeBron AD pick and roll, and that just demolished them, dude. They're not going to have Wiseman. They'll have Draymond, but they'll have Kevon Looney, who isn't even a 7-footer. I'm expecting our bigs to do some damage. But if it's anything, go for it.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say that's sort of the thing is that they don't Kevon Looney, and if he were around Wiseman, those guys don't have the physical tools to keep people like either Andre Drummond or Anthony Davis in different ways away from their spots.
Or Montrezl Harrell too.
So the Warriors keep getting those guys just get played off the floor. And you end up with Draymond at the 5, which he's a better defender than either of those guys, even at the physical disadvantage. But then all of a sudden you've got the sort of comedy of a 6'6" guy trying to slow down 2 beastly 7-footers. And it's a nightmare in the paint for them.
Yeah, it's going to be, I'm really looking forward to that matchup in the paint with them, dude. The only way I could see us not coming out victorious is if we really don't take care of the ball. We turn the ball over a lot. And with us having a little continuity, that is in play. But I think it would take a lot of turnovers and a lot of missed threes and just a really amazing effort in paint defense from the Warriors. So I'm feeling pretty good about our chances. I was even just, scanning the internet for articles, and there's some Golden State Warriors writer that wrote that the Lakers are the worst matchup for the Warriors, which is what a lot of Phoenix people were saying too about if we get them in the first round. So that gives me confidence too.
One thing to sort of watch, though, as kind of a warning, in the interest of giving the Warriors their respect, the fact that Dennis was talking in the press today about not really quite having his legs back yet, he's going to be the guy chasing Steph around those screens.
Yep.
So if he doesn't have his legs back all the way and he is lagging and either giving up open jumpers or fouling, trying to make up that distance, then Steph sort of starts to become a problem. I wouldn't be surprised if that happens to see a lot of Caruso on Steph or KCP running around those screens in place of Dennis, in part because of his conditioning.
I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah, I would immediately imagine it's going to be KCP and Caruso, but Caruso even himself has been dealing with that right foot injury, so don't know if that's completely healed or if that would hamper him a bit. To be truthful, Steph is probably not 100% healthy. No one really is at this point of the year, but that is something we got to watch out for and keep in mind in the interest of respecting the matchup, dude. I feel like we probably come away with a pretty good victory. I like that given how tricky Steph is to defend, I like that we have LeBron to go against him because he's just had all these high stakes bouts with him in the past, and he knows how to deal with Steph over the course of a series. Though one thing that Candace Parker brought up when this was like a few weeks ago before the play-in tournament was confirmed, she said she didn't want the Lakers to get in the play-in tournament because just thinking back to the bubble last year, we usually took a game to warm up. We lost game 1 against the Portland Trail Blazers. Our offense wasn't totally in sync. Lose game 1 against the Rockets. The team knows this is a different situation, though, but that is also something I'm looking out for. Are we going to have another slow start? Guess we won't know until that moment happens, but that is also something I'm looking out for. You have any thoughts on that?
I think a lot of those slow starts were, I think, in part because if you go back to those games, every game at the beginning of game 1, the first thing Frank Vogel did was shove the ball into Anthony Davis at the post and tell them to stop it. And he figured out his offensive adjustments from there. Like, this is an Anthony Davis post up. What are you going to do? And we're going to reconfigure the offense around whatever you decide you're going to do for this.
Mm-hmm.
That's not exactly what they've been doing this year, and I'll be surprised if they do that all the time, in part because of the injury and in part just because they've got Dennis initiating now. And his particular advantage is taking people around screens or using his speed or whatever. They don't need to start the offense with Anthony Davis the way they did last year, but to account for the lack of shooters.
Mm-hmm.
Because they've got another primary creator. So I think it's going to look a lot different in general. I didn't agree that kind of decision from last year because look at the final.
It was getting a little laggy, Phil. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
It was getting a little laggy. Do you mind repeating just like the end of that?
Oh, sorry. It's a different situation. All the data don't point to that. It happened in the first couple of rounds, but then they went up against Miami in the finals and just wiped the floor with them in game 1. So I would not be surprised with the different personnel and with everyone, especially LeBron James, being aware of the stakes and expectations. I don't think that needing a game to get into it is going to be, if they lose, what causes them to lose.
Yeah. I think even Anthony Davis said in the media today that we don't want to, play that extra game. We want to get a few more days in of rest and practice. Man, I just get so happy at the thought of the Lakers just getting some practice time in, dude. Just time to hang out with each other and just build that continuity that they didn't get earlier in the year. So they have all that in mind too, and I really hope they get that extra practice time. But I think that about wraps it up in terms of the matchup. Do you have any final thoughts in terms of the Warriors matchup?
No, I think we've covered it. I mean, I respect them, but like I said, I will be surprised if the Lakers don't come in and take care of business.
Yeah, I think that that about wraps it up. I just want to also just say thank you to the basketball gods for ending the regular season. This was a horrible regular season for us. We had such a great offseason, but our big dogs got hurt, and our role players really stepped up in a big way. That's been a bright spot. They got some extra development that they wouldn't have if LeBron and AD didn't go down. They really had to attack their weaknesses or else, we wouldn't stay afloat. So they had to work on the weaknesses. I think Schroeder became a better decision maker, a better, guy if he's going to be the main ball handler on the floor. I think he made strides on that end. I thought Caruso made some strides as a facilitator. And, a guy like Kuzma made some really great improvements just throughout the year. I Are there any reflections you have on this regular season for us?
Like, y'all need to watch out for Taylor Horton-Tucker.
Yes, thank you for bringing that up.
Give this kid a proper offseason with the kind of developments that he's made, and give, Phil Handy and Mike Penberthy a chance to go to town with him. I think next year is going to be a big deal. So mark it on your calendars.
I think so too. And if we can get Drummond back, which it's not really looking likely because of contracts, that's just something I've been wondering. What if Drummond gets a proper offseason to work with our guys, a proper training camp to work with Frank Vogel? I think that would just really turn him into the defensive beast that we thought that he could be, coming onto the team. But I think that about wraps it up, man. It was really great having you on the pod today.
Yeah, it's great being here, man. Thanks for having me on again.
Yep. Go Lakers. I think we should take care of the Warriors tonight, but if not, shit. I mean, take care of business, boys. Don't want to leave the dance early. Take care, man.
Lakers
See you later.
won.
Lakers in 1. Yep. We can use that and it can make sense against this Warriors matchup. Let's go.
Later, man.
All right, later.